Hi everyone, my name is Colleen Cleveland and I am your instructor for game design. The week 1 to start 2, this is the second edition for the mandatory reading. We're going to go over the documents of this particular assignment. So let's go to play versus game and game definition. Does play mean game? Now, the words play and game are both nouns and verbs. They both relate to one another, but when observing these two words, when employed, it can bring confusion to us game designers. The idea behind what we design is both play and game. Though a play designer can be confused with a theater major, whereas a game designer, at the time of his writing, isn't considered to contribute to anything to the arts. Well, at least not in the classic sense of high art. The larger question then becomes, how do you think about games in general? What does a play session or play activity belong to? It may seem like all play activities are games, but as a matter of fact, it's the other way around. Games are a subset of play, things that humans and other species do when carrying out actions, according to certain agreed upon rules, especially as they apply to the results of these actions towards attaining an objective or arriving at a goal. The play activities that exist far outnumber the concept of game. To help illustrate this, use the word play as a verb and notice how much more it's implemented into the English language with a general use. I play, interact with the dog. I play, make a function, the game. I played, fool around. I play, create music, an instrument. I played, fiddled with the numbers. I played, started the device, the movie. I play, toys used as pawns with people, etc. The verb game means to make something into a game, e.g., I game the system. We all know what playing is, both instinctively and etymologically, to learn/practice with leisure or without explicit goals, or the opposite of work, respectively. The number of different play activities is varied. Puzzles, toys, sing-alongs, gambling, games, sports, experimental discovery process, social exchanges. Notice that games are different than the rest. If not merely tangibly nuanced, they're cousins to one another. So catch. Here's a familiar example. When people play with toys, sometimes they consider it a game, though upon closer examination, they're not. After all, when you say, I'm playing Tetris, it's the same verb when saying, I'm playing catch. However, catch, at its simplest, is throwing the ball with someone catching. Vice versa. There's a lot of wiggle room within this activity. Many things aren't kept track of. People outcomes are of little consequence. For example, it's okay to drop the ball. Getting hit with the ball, holding on to it or not throwing it back. The location is irrelevant. You can do it at a beach, a backyard, indoors. And equipment is optional. Glove with a tennis ball or beach ball. It doesn't have strict rules. The challenge and skill required to participate are kept light and adjustable on the fly. Throw styles can be anything you invent, anything you come up with, copy, coin. What you do with a ball doesn't matter because very few things are elevated from the activity. Now, contrast to an official game of baseball or cricket, you'll know that score is kept, turns are lost, bonuses or penalties are applied and tracked, length of play matters. Thus, we tend to refer to catch as a pastime for the designer's lexicon. It's a toy-based play activity, especially when looking at it from a macro or looking from the overall picture. When does it become a game? Now, one could assert that it becomes one when either person playing outlines or suggests a goal, while giving each other a rule for how to throw or how to catch the ball. Now, say if you did 3 pop-ups, let's say 3, this is a goal, pop flies, a rule governs what it is and isn't a pop fly, and in a row, that's another goal. Are there many games, rules, actions, goals, or choices within catch? Zooming further into the activity, you'll find that in fact many smaller games occur when you play catch or you play at catch. Where? At every throw. For example, if someone tells you, here comes a knuckleball, read it. A knuckleball goes fast, but doesn't spin much, so you can read the insignia as it travels towards you. If the ball spins, the pitcher loses, and the catcher says, nope, try again. Or if the knuckleball is good, ha ha, that was a good one. A sigh of relief and accomplishment can be perceived from the pitcher. Every throw is a mini session in which something is evaluated. Yet the macro-arching rule, and that's the zoomed out rule and the whole picture, is not explicitly observed, and thus both pitchers simply keep playing with the behaviors the toy or the ball can exhibit. Or put simply, that the ball is being thrown and caught. As Chris Crawford says, the overall quality, the product, not the sum. Or, in other words, just because the player does some verb, it doesn't immediately make it a game. George Carlin was a comedian and a brilliant inquisitor. He has a wonderful analysis of baseball versus football, especially the labels used to refer to each game's elements. In that bit, and you can look at YouTube, George Carlin, Baseball versus American Football, one of his most interesting observations is that baseball is one of the few, if rare, games where the defense holds the ball. For the great comedian he was, seemingly he's also a great designer. Let's move the discussion now to another toy versus game debate that involves a different sphere of bounciness, basketball. Let's face it, throwing the ball at a hoop by yourself is called practice. Playing horse is an entirely different thing. Dribbling the ball is just bouncing the ball around. Now here's a closer look at dribbling. Bouncing the ball with one hand without it touching any part of your body other than that one hand. And of course you may choose alternate hands. The ball must never bounce higher than your chest. You may only take 2 steps between bounces. Pausing, dribbling, holding the ball with 2 hands or palming it makes you stop your movement. At this moment, you may pass it to someone else that follows the same rules, and breaking any of the rules will make you lose a turn. Now, can you name another sport where the mechanical movement of a player is directly tied to the mechanical interaction of the ball or / item? All that dribbling and still no game yet. It's just moving the ball. Nobody keeps track of how many restarts, aka traveling, carrying, and double dribbles. No decisions are made based upon any of the rules being followed or broken. Nothing changes beyond your position within the play space. Wait a minute, what space? We haven't asked where you can or can't go. Where are the bounds of the court? Dribble. And thus you can do these things anywhere. Grass, court, sidewalk, although not indoors for some reason. And we still have no game simply because we haven't given the activity at hand its goals. In reality, all we've made is a list of rules on bouncing a ball and calling it something else. But isn't that a good foundation, as well as an interesting starting mechanic for a game to be built along, with shooting the ball at the hoop? Imagine basketball without dribbling. It might still work, but, it's silly. When a kid asks, so why can't I just pick the ball and run with it? Don't you want to say, 'cause? And as a game designer, however, you get to say because challenge enhances a goal's sense of accomplishment. A game must have goals set about them, even when the goals aren't explicit. They, at times, must be discoverable and tested. For example, any kid's game, such as stickball, can go on forever, much like the game of Tetris. There's always a goal of playing it as much as you can before sunset, or before somebody gets hurt, or a fight breaks out. And even then, these ending conditions do not mean the game's over. Now about points. If you notice, very few outdoor games have complicated point systems. Notice also how the score across many sports are hardly deducted. You always add to the score, almost never subtract. That's for simplicity's sake. I was making a game that I thought should have a point system that was calculated by dividing. One of the playtesters heard that one of my design goals was to be played in classrooms with a chalkboard or at the beach with a stick drawing on the sand. And her critique was that figuring out who won was too complicated. I tried to convince her that this would give kids an incentive to learn how to divide, which in my estimation is achieved by the time they're in 4th grade. Now, a noble goal indeed if my game could facilitate this, yet I had violated one of the core principles of the game, played by everyone else with anything resembling a pen or paper. Thus, the point system was stripped and redesigned. A redesign was in order. About stories. Neither baseball nor Tetris need a story. A game is not the story shown to the players. Stories are not what game design is seeking to formalize and analyze, for these have their own field of study in language structures and narrativity. And please go to this link. The point. We call most play activities games when we shouldn't. Toys are not games. Stories are not games either. Blending the two does not a game make. Function equals mechanics equals rules. Interaction equals dynamics equals